Hi guys, and welcome to the Dual Podcast. Thanks everybody for checking in, joining me. This week we're going to be previewing Sin 626, Weremouth versus Diggs 2. I've gotten a request from a couple people participating in the card to cover it, so I'm going to do that. Unfortunately, fitting it into the schedule and doing a lot of other things. I'm recording this a little bit later at night, so I'm a little bit quieter to not wake everybody in my house, my living area. So, appreciate you guys. There's a volume button there, so I hope you guys can hear this and the sound quality is still okay. Let me know if you have any problems with it. I can sort it out. Maybe amplify the audio of the video after it goes up on YouTube. But so far, we've got, for the month of April, we've got Sin 626, which I'm going to do, which will be the first part of this podcast. I hope to record this tonight and then get this up to you guys tomorrow morning. Or tomorrow afternoon, so it can be up on the Friday before the card itself in London on the Saturday. And then the second part of the show is going to be released probably middle of next week. I'm going to do a show where I don't have a preview in it, and I've posted a thread in the forums, which some of you have seen and responded to, so I appreciate that. It's going to be all about different questions that you have about the podcast, for me, different things. And it's exciting for me because what it revolves around is essentially how has MMA and MMA Tycoon impacted you, influenced you? Were you a fan of MMA before the game? Did this make you a fan or make you watch fights a little bit more? I'm going to go over that experience for me and then read off some of your responses and your replies and reflect on those as well. Might be a little bit shorter show, might be a long show, depends how many responses you get. So anybody listening to this, I encourage you, I'll bump the thread after I post this or right before I post this, so we can get some more responses. Hopefully I aim to do that early next week, and maybe even over the weekend, and then post it early next week for a part 2 of the show, for something that's a little bit different, kind of a 2-parter, because I'm going to record this, get this up, and for the preview portion, and then do something a little bit outside of the box for the podcast and for the norm. So without further ado, I do want to get this out before the card happens, so let's get to it. First fight we have on Sin 626. I should mention as well, I plan to do the Supernova card at the end of April too, as well as Pulse 100, so it's a jam-packed month of previews. We started our Pick'em contest last month. Congratulations to Blake Phoenix for winning the first month of the Pick'em. And this is the first event in April, so this will be a good one to get into, you guys, if you have picks as well for when I post the show. We have Declan versus Lucasen, and it's a 185-pound fight. 3 rounds, of course. 20-8 Declan, 12-3 Lucasen. Lucasen seems to match or better the skill everywhere, but the question I have is the experience. Lucasen, this is his 16th fight. Declan, this is his 29th. Lucasen, 10 of his 12 wins have been by KO TKO. and they are both coming off a loss, however. And Declan really needs this win because he's lost 3 of his last 4. I don't think he's going to get it, though. I've got Lucasen. I question the chin a little bit. Half of his losses have come by KO stoppage, and he's been struggling lately. 3, of course, of his last 4 losses are by KO. Brand new manager, transitioning from Marky Mark to Buff Minion, so it'll be interesting how the strategy changes, the sliders change. But I've got Lucasen taking Declan in this one, probably by KO. That's his best avenue to win. Secondly, we have Blair Darrow and Henson Benderson. Creative, original. This is interesting because I see the first card I ever did for the Dual podcast, or the first preview that I ever did the pick'em for, was Sin 623 a few weeks ago. Now I see this card, I see a lot of the same names on it, so it'll be interesting to kind of break that down, whether they can continue or their winning or losing streak. Blair Darrow is one of those guys that I've previewed a couple of his fights, winning 1-6-1. Benderson 20, 13, and 10 of his 13 losses by decision. Darrow's got a big KO power. 14 of his 21 wins by KO TKO, and he fights at 145, and he's got a 2/3 ratio on his finishes. So that's interesting for me to be sure. Here I am getting Skype messages during the show. I'm sure you guys may have heard that. I question, though. I've got Benderson in this one. I originally was going to pick Darrow. Darrow's won 3 of his last 4. Benderson's lost 3 of his last 4. But the morale on Darrow is a problem. I think he could be susceptible to being finished due to lack of morale, lack of heart. So, ordinarily, I would pick Darrow. But because of the morale difference, I think that's going to be a big factor, and I'm going to take Benderson. Next on the card, we have Art Brock versus Liv Erickson. Interesting fight. 205-pound fight, but interesting fight because Erickson, I covered his debut in the Auric. He lost, and then now he's lost again. So he's lost 2 in a row after coming in as a hot prospect. Art Brock has now lost 3 of his last, 3 in a row, and then he's 1-3-1 in his last 5. 14-7-1 Brock, 17-13-1 for Erickson, and all 14 of Brock's wins are by KO. And I think that's going to be the big factor here, because of the 13 losses, 8 for Erickson have come by way of KO TKO. I think Erickson's a fantastically skilled fighter with a bit of a questionable chin. So, I'm going to go with Brock in this one. I think he needs it to... generally needs it to stay in the org. Because if you lose 4 in a row, even if it is Sin, you're probably done. Next we have Ajax and Quill Corvus versus Marty Robbins. Some of these names. Another buff minion fighter, Marty Robbins, I remember from Sin and from Gamma as well. We've got Corvus, who's a 22, 11, and 1, versus Robbins, who is 27 and 8. Really getting the test now, Robbins, because most of his career he was in lower level orgs. Now he's fighting up the big time, getting that big payday, and starting to be exposed a little bit. Lost 4 of his last 5. Corvus, again, 1, 3, and 1 in his last 5. So you both have both guys who are in desperate need of a win. This is really a coin flip for me, a pick'em. I'm going to pick Robbins. I think it could be a difficult fight on both sides because Robbins' best avenue is probably a knockout, and Corvus doesn't really get knocked out. And Corvus kind of balances his win, but he's probably outskilled based on primaries here. So I'm going to pick Robbins, but I'm not very confident in that pick. Alright, next fight, the 6th fight up on the card. La De Hoya, again with the original names, we had Benderson and La De Hoya versus Misha Collins. And La De Hoya is 18 and 7 versus Misha, who is 23, 18 and 1. Long-time vet. And he's been with Sin for a while. Never really has been able to get a win streak going. He's kind of one of those guys that will lose a couple, win a couple. Lose one, win one. Lose a couple, win a couple. La De Hoya, 13 of his 18 wins by KO TKO. His losses are kind of spread out, but he's won 4 in a row. So he's on a heater here. Collins has lost 3 of his last 5, but he's a Sin veteran. Very similar skills. Boxing similar. La De Hoya has Muay Thai advantage. Wrestling, it's even on primaries. And Collins has a BJJ advantage. He has subbed 8 of his wins, so it is possible that he could catch a ground submission if he can get him down. But this is 145. I find it interesting that there's a bit of a weight discrepancy, about 10 pounds here. But I gotta pick the guy who's on the hot streak, on the rise. De Hoya is my pick here. Originally I was gonna pick Collins, but the more I look into the skills and abilities and the recent track record, I'm going to go with De Hoya here. Now that's the first 5 fights on the card. I'm going to take a quick ad break to run some ads from our usual sponsors. Thanks again to HGH, to Urban Fighter, to Synchronicity, to really everybody who sponsored my contests. My Balls is Hot, Groove Gear, Urban Fighter, as I said, Atticus University, London, Sin City All-Stars, everybody. So I'm going to run a couple of ads here, and then we'll preview the second half of this card and wrap everything up. Sin City All-Stars, official sponsor of Pride FC, has everything you need after a tough night on the strip. Come to Vegas for 2 genuine 160 products, as well as the biggest sponsor on the market. Sin City All-Stars, Vegas today. Promotional consideration paid for by the following. HGH Nutrients. When regular steroids just aren't good enough, visit HGH Nutrients, located on the New York High Street an official sponsor of Empire 310K. They have 5 Monster 160 supplements for all of your fighting needs. The king of the E-Cubit is ready to serve you at HGH Nutrients in New York. Okay, guys, so we're back, and half 2 of Sin 626. And to kick off the second half, we have Voyla Nikolaev versus Madrat Magomedov. Now, these two guys were both in fights that I previewed before. Magomedov coming in with a win, and Nikolaev, who I picked in the previous preview, lost to Kano Batara. He's got a major BJJ advantage and a wrestling advantage here, and actually an advantage in all 4 primaries, but he's lost 3 of his last 4. Primarily a submission specialist. Question is, how much does he have left in the tank? 84th fight, he's looking for his 50th win. 49 and 34. 21 wins by sub. Will the Jin hold up? Because Magomedov has 11 of 17 wins by KO. He's 3-2 in his last 5. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say Magomedov by KO TKO. I think his wrestling is he's probably outskilled, but his wrestling is good enough to keep it on the feet long enough to tire Nikolaev out. And I'm going with Magomedov to defeat Nikolaev. So to recap the picks so far before we get into the 4 kind of bigger fights, I've got Lukeson over Declan, Benderson over Darrow, Brock over Erickson, Robbins over Koros, De Hoya over Collins, and Magomedov over Nikolaev. Now we have Hendrik Vermeulen versus Mr. Dog, Junkyard Dog, JYD. Now, Vermeulen is a long-time Dare staple, and he's had an up-and-down run so far in Sin. Junkyard Dog, he's been in Sin for a long time. Another one of those guys that he's been on a few runs. Just recently lost the title fight to ODV. ODV versus JYD. We've got 23-8 versus 23-14. Very similar skills. The one thing I question that I don't usually question in fights, Vermeulen is 2-3 in his last 5, Dog 3-2. Is Vermeulen has a heavy weight cut. He cuts to 185 from 204 pounds. And he's very, very close to not making that cut. I think it would affect you in some way, at least. I don't know how big of an effect it has, but I think JYD's got a Muay Thai advantage. He's got a BJJ advantage. I'm picking him to win this fight. And generally, I would think that coming off a title fight, he did get finished. Or no, he didn't get finished. He went 5 rounds with the champ. I apologize. I was looking at a previous fight, but he stood in there 5 rounds with the champ. That's gotta be a confidence builder, even though he did not win a round. I think it's back on track for him, and I'm gonna go with JYD in this fight. Next we have St. Pedro and Vineyard. Now, this is an interesting fight to me just because I'm one of the guys that when St. Pedro came into Sin, first preview I ever did, I believe Sin 619. And when St. Pedro came into Sin, he fought Archie Griffiths for the title in his first Sin fight, coming off of Dare being just a stud. He fought Archie Griffiths. Archie Griffiths, we now know, is a beast. And then he fought Gareth Keenan, who we always knew was a beast. So he's lost 2 in a row, but I still think his stock is reasonably high because of the opposition and the performance of them that he faced. Vineyard is one of those guys that I do believe in him. Again, he's one of those guys that I picked against Brady Kavanaugh, and then I picked him to have a good showing against Brady Kavanaugh, and he got finished, and then he comes out against Jackson Bishop and wins. It's interesting. Kind of an up and down situation for him. San Pedro 16-5-1, Vineyard 15-5. Both guys have big power for this division, but generally have good chins for this division. So it's an interesting. This could very well go to decision, but I think St. Pedro needs this win to legitimize himself as a top contender in the division, because we all thought that's what he was coming in. He hasn't exactly proven that, but I'm going to take him to win this fight, and it'll be interesting to see who he gets next if he wins, because he's lost to Griffith, he's lost to Keenan, but I still think he's a fighter that, given time, will be on the rise. I like what I've seen from him. And then we get to the 2 title fight poster share fights, I guess. Feature attractions. We've got the 205 title fight and the 170-pound title fight. We've got Jawan Robinson versus Nick Murphy. Now, Javon is a guy that I said was always a contender and one of the best gatekeepers in the game. Because if you beat him, you're championship material. 100% of the time. He lost to Evil Nixon, he lost to Joey, and then he avenged that Joey loss by taking a unanimous decision and winning the title. Now, as they always say, it's defending the title that's the hardest part. Defending the title makes you a champion. Was that title win a fluke? Hard to say, because I do think he's a really talented fighter, and he's facing a really tough opposition in Nick Murphy. Anybody who can come in and beat Foot Fungus, and in his debut fight for Big Sin, is somebody that I take very, very seriously. And it's 28-9 for Robinson, 23-5 for Murphy. Wins are evenly split for both guys between TKO, KO, and decision. Nobody's ever had a sub. I think the interesting thing on at this level, especially with Nick Murphy, a guy this high, top of the class, he's lost 5 fights, but he's never been finished. So he's lost decisions, which shows me that defensively he's strong. I think the opposition has been pretty good, all told. And the chin will probably hold up over some pressure. Primary-wise, slight advantage to Murphy, but only in the wrestling category. And this is a big fight for the 205 division for game-wide, because both these guys are top 40 fighters pound for pound. Again, I really feel like this is coin flip fight. Murphy winning 4 of his last 5. Robinson winning 5 in a row. I really question, though, how much did that Joey fight take out of him? I am, again, not confident in this pick by any means, but I'm going to say new champ. I'm going to say Nick Murphy, new champ. And as I said, if Nick loses this fight, I still think he's a contender for a rematch down the line. Because Juwan is an exceptionally talented fighter that beats top class guys with some regularity. And I'm going to say new champ, but again, that's a coin flip for me. Final fight on the card today, Dave Waremouth versus Orlando Diggs. This was a shocker last time because this is a rematch, the second fight in the series. Waremouth came in and stole the title from what was at the time probably a consensus top 3, sometimes even number 1 pound for pound guy in the game. And a guy came in and fed him his lunch, basically. Waremouth putting together a big streak and capping it off with the biggest win of his career, winning 5 in a row. And anybody that can come into Sin and immediately beat Mrs. Sonata and Orlando Diggs is someone that you have to pay attention to. Diggs is one of the best welterweights the game has ever seen. You look at his losses, and it's a pretty prominent list. His last loss before this was ODB, and pretty significant that Waremouth was able to come in and beat him. Waremouth 18-4, Diggs 38-14. Waremouth is another one of those guys with a big cut, and that's something that I worry about. I do think part of the reason Diggs lost the first fight, despite having what I view as a semi-significant skill advantage, is slider error. I think may have been looking too much for the KO. Thought it would be a bit of an easy night at the office. I saw Chris hyping the fight before the fight, saying it might be his last fight, and he wants to go out on the top or go out on a shield. He didn't really do either, but didn't produce the volume to win a decision because I don't think it was expected to go 5 rounds. I think he's going to fight smarter this time, if I had to guess. And I think he is generally the superior fighter when all is even. So I'm going to pick Diggs to regain his title in the rematch. And we'll see what happens. very interested to see that fight, because if Weirmouth can pull it off again, this guy is already Hall of Fame legend material with multiple wins over Orlando Diggs. So to recap the card in full and my picks, I've got Lucasen over Declan, Benderson over Darrow, Brock over Erickson, Robbins over Corvas, De Hoya over Collins, Magomedov over Nikolev, Dog over Vermeulen, St. Pedro over Vineyard, Murphy, new champ over Robinson, and Diggs, new champ, and avenging his loss in the rematch over Weirmouth. So, interesting bout, and interesting card, and a fun one. As I said before, I'll post this, and I've also got a tracker for the Pick'em. So this will be the Pick'em card for this week. Next show, second parter, I'm going to be looking at questions and answers. How has MMA influenced you? How did you get into the game? I'm going to be explaining that for myself and reading some of the replies that you guys have given me. And then we'll get, later into the month, get into Pulse 100. I also want to get into the cross promotion of Supernova, which is always a very fun yearly event at the end of April for Synchronicity as well. I'm always open to theories and suggestions, and willing to do pretty much most things, as long as it's something that the community also takes interest in, and it's something that they want to do. So I appreciate, in that regard, people listening and participating. So if you guys want to post also in the thread any ideas or anything you want to see featured on a prominent basis, I'm open to that as well. But for now, that's going to wrap it up for me, guys. I'll talk to you again very, very soon, and hopefully I'll get this up on Friday, and then the middle of the week next week we can do the question and answer portion of the next show. Thanks, guys. See you later.